Okay. Well, hi, everybody. I know Antoinette, and apparently I know Rebecca's dad. She informed me she received my card from him. My name is Jess, and I'm an oncology navigation manager here at New Mexico Cancer Center. And I have two kids who are now adults. It's just so weird to say, but they are. But their dad had cancer when they were little. So, talking to your kids about this difficult diagnosis is near and dear to my heart. I run the teen program for Cancer Services of New Mexico's Family Cancer Retreat. And then I run a program called CLIMB, CLIMB, that we host here at New Mexico Cancer Center, but it's actually open to the entire community. So I've worked with in the cancer field for a long time now. I've experienced it myself as a caregiver, and I run these programs. I'm going to share with you today about how to talk to kids about your cancer diagnosis, what their cognitive understanding is at different ages, things that you can share with them, and some tips. And then I can tell you a little bit more about the CLIMB program towards the end in case you might be interested. I'm going to share my screen. I'm assuming I can do that, Allison. Is that correct? Actually,
yeah, I believe so. Let me just make sure that I have it on. Mom.
Okay. Yeah, it said I couldn't.
Okay, do you know how I turn that on here in settings? Meeting settings?
I'm not sure since you're the host. I think you can go
if you hover over her, and there should be 3 dots by her name, and give her host privileges. Make her the host.
Oh, there you go. There's always a Zoom expert.
I know. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So how do I hover over her on an iPad? Any thoughts on that?
Can you see me? Can you see me, my picture talking?
Let me see if I can just make you the host.
If you can get into the list of members or people on the call, you should be able to click next to her name.
Perfect. Let me try that.
Yeah, it should give you a more.
All right, I'm just going to make you the host, and then it should allow you to do that. It doesn't have anything about turning on sharing, but.
Okay. We chit-chatted instead of doing tech support stuff.
No problem. So, okay, you are the host now, Jess. Let me know if that works for you.
Okay, wonderful. Let's see. I can share my screen.
Good.
Let me just do this. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see my screen and you can see this. You guys can see that? Great.
Yep.
Okay, so I did prepare this for a talk we do at the cancer retreat. I use it for everything. So we'll just start here. Please stop me if you have questions. I do want it to be interactive and not lecture-like, which it can be that way sometimes, sharing so much information. But the first thing I think would be interesting to know is, does everyone here in the group today have kids? Yes. And okay, great. And do they know about your cancer diagnosis? Somebody say no.
I don't have children, but I'm very interested in this topic. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, there's always some children in your life, whether they are yours biologically or not, and not just as parents, grandparents too, aunts, anyone can really benefit from this conversation. Kind of already gave you my background. I know as adults, and especially as parents, it can be really difficult to think about talking to your child about your cancer diagnosis. Oftentimes as adults, we can't even, I'd say, digest how we feel about things. which can make it really even scarier to talk to your child about it. But it's a scary information, and the word cancer is a pretty scary word for most people, especially kids. Most people know someone who's had cancer. Sometimes they've known someone who's passed away from cancer, and that goes for our kids too. It's so prominent these days. You can't really protect people from cancer and what happens with cancer. But kids are really smart, and they usually figure things out if they're not told about it. And sometimes they make up something that could be worse than what actually might be going on for you in particularly. So it's always good to be honest with them. But there's certain things you can say or not say, possibly depending on the age group that you are dealing with. But we want to just encourage being upfront about your diagnosis and where things are at so that you don't develop any type of mistrust with your child. And I know for most parents and significant adults with children, that's usually pretty important to us. And you don't want to leave your kid to their own imagination to make up what might be going on or what might be happening. That can oftentimes be worse. So there's emotional cognition by age. So even if you have an infant or a toddler, they might not be able to sit down and chat about, like, what are you doing? Are you taking chemotherapy? Obviously, but they can sense changes in the family and routine and your emotions. And so even practicing telling your younger child can be really helpful. Now, does anybody, like, how old are the kids that you guys have? So I don't want to focus on areas that aren't irrelevant to this group.
My son's 8.
Mine are 5 and 7.
5 and 7. Okay.
Mine are 1 and 2.
Okay.
Mine are 7 and 10.
Great.
5.
Okay.
And I have a 27 and a 29.
Great. Okay. We probably won't cover young adults in here, but there's definitely some resources, Antoinette, if you feel like that would be helpful for you. And at their age, I wouldn't say that the like later teen years will apply necessarily. But thanks for joining in. So for those of you with the 0 to 2 years of age, those changes in routine can certainly be felt by them. Maybe you've seen that they've regressed a little bit in some areas of care, or their growth that they were at before. Maybe they're a little more clingy. Maybe they want you to hold them a little bit more if you're gone away from them more often, or you have caregivers coming in to watch them when before maybe you didn't. Just changes like that. You could see some different behaviors happening with your kids. And you can just be aware of where you're at when you walk into the room with your child. Not that you want to fully protect them, but maybe depending on where you're at with your own emotions, they certainly can feel that from you. And if you're having a hard time talking about how you feel about your diagnosis, talking to your really little ones can be really helpful. Okay, let's see. 3 to 5. So the 3 to 5 year olds, they can have some
Excuse me. Can you give some examples of words to use for each one? Like, do you use sickness, or do you know what I'm saying, like that?
Mm-hmm.
Would that be possible, or does that not help?
Well, I would be careful not to use generalizations like, oh, I have an illness, or oh, I have a sickness, because we use those words a lot for a lot of different things, and you don't want to develop a cognitive fear over those words. Where, let's say you get through all of this breast cancer treatment and you're fine, you're without disease, you're 6 years out, but you keep saying, well, I don't feel well, I have an illness today, or that could be equated to that word if you kept using it while you were undergoing treatment. So I would stick to, I have with the babies, it doesn't matter so much, but as we talk more about the different ages, I can give you some examples in those age groups. So does that make sense? Great. Okay, thanks. I do good with the thumbs up, and everybody can hear me okay, right? Okay, good. So you're 3 to 5. I'm sure you had a time to review the slide, but they have some general understanding of what not feeling well feels like. Maybe your 3 or 5-year-olds had an upset tummy, or, you know, they had a little bout of diarrhea or something, you know, they've had a cold and the sniffles. And so they have an idea of what not feeling well is like. And they might also have seen someone and how they feel with a serious illness before. This age group can have a lot of magical thinking. You probably see it in their play, and they can make up that magical thinking with illness as well, which is another reason why, you know, being kind of as transparent as you can be with them is helpful. They can think that maybe they've done something to cause how you feel or cause your illness. Maybe they did something and got in trouble, or they haven't been in the best mood themselves and you're not feeling well. They can feel like maybe they've caused you to not feel well, or causing things to happen themselves, which of course they haven't, but they can take that on to themselves. They can have some regressive behavior. Maybe they've been potty trained and they start wetting the bed again, or acting out in social situations. They can feel overwhelmed. They can have, you know, bursts of emotions just like we do when we're overwhelmed. And they can ask about what's happening to you over and over again. If they're also going to a caregiver more frequently, or going to do dropped off at, not so much during COVID, but like if they go to a nursery school or a daycare or something, they're having to start because you're having treatment, or go to a caregiver's home because you're going to treatment more frequently than they used to, they can experience some of that separation anxiety from you. And then they can also like act out going to the doctor, or act out that you don't feel well, or maybe they pretend they don't feel well. So any questions about this slide or this information? No. Okay. Words you can use at this age. This is the age I'd really be careful of the words that you use about what you're going to call your illness. I would use the word cancer. You can explain to them what cancer is as best you can at this age. The CLIMB program, where we actually teach kids about cancer, starts at 1st grade through senior and high school, but we do actually have some kindergartners in there once in a while. If they have an older sibling, we allow a kindergartner to come to CLIMB so that they're not left out. And they have a cognitive level that they can pretty much understand most of the curriculum that's shared with them. So I'd just be careful with the language here. School age kids, they pretty much understand what cancer is. They might have a friend they know that has had a family member be really sick with cancer, or even pass away. And they still have magical thinking, just like that younger group does. They might be on the internet already, looking up things and getting some misinformation about things. Sometimes, you know, a lot of kids have phones these days, or their friend they know whose family member had cancer might be a completely different kind of cancer than what you have. And their friend is sharing information about that person and what happened to that person, which they can then relate to you. So it's really important to talk clearly about what your diagnosis is and what's happening for you, and explain to them any differences if they bring them up. Younger kids don't typically have the same difficulties, or I'd say barriers, in communicating about the cancer unless you're giving them cues that it's not safe to talk about it. So if you remain open and talking about it, then the younger kids are really quite open. And we really see this evidenced in the Climb program and working with the kids there. They still act out. Sometimes they might distance themselves because being sick or cancer can be scary, and some kids will distance themselves a little bit, and that doesn't feel good for the parent usually. But giving them some space and then finding ways to bring them back in different ways to keep your bond going is recommended, but not to be forceful about it, to let them have that space to deal with it. You know, we get time, hopefully, it's probably not enough time to digest what's happening with our health. But you go to the doctor's appointment and they share this information, and you have time to digest it, usually before that information hits your children. And sometimes our children don't get the same amount of time to process through things, and we sometimes can expect them to process things more quickly than what we ourselves get in processing information. So that's just good to keep in mind for all age groups to give. And then we're all have different personalities and deal with things differently and cope differently. So making sure that, you know, we're giving our kids time to digest the information in the way that works for them, and not just in the way that works for us. Sometimes the way we cope with things and the way our kids cope with things aren't necessarily the same way. So that can be helpful. Any questions about this age? No? Okay, middle school. Middle schools, these are kind of our in-betweeners, right? They're not little anymore, but they're not teens anymore. Sometimes they worry. A lot of times they can worry a lot. Your older school age kids, the 9s and 10s, can have a lot of worry. They can actually regress too, and you know, not sleep well, have nightmares, have bedwetting. Even though they're this age, it can happen. Suck their thumb again. Want that toy back that they had when they were little that sits on the shelf now. Maybe they want to go to sleep with it at night again. They definitely can have a basic understanding of cancer and its diagnosis and what treatments are look like. They definitely have access to the internet and usually a phone and know people. They get a lot of misinformation for sure at this age through teens. That's definitely more something that you would want to keep an eye on, that they have the right information about you, and not just breast cancer in general, but you and what you're going through. Magical thinking still happens here. Fantastical thinking, I think, more so than like, they're most likely not going to pretend you're a unicorn, but they might pretend other things about your family that are more fantastical. They can show anger. Their grades might drop. They might withdraw socially a little bit if it feels overwhelming to them. You could be not able to take them to as many things like their soccer practice and things like maybe you always do that, but now another adult is having to take them to these things, and that can be impactful for them. So it's impactful in their time that they usually spend for you. And then people ask, hey, where's your mom? How's your mom? You know, and that can be overwhelming for kids. They can hide their feelings here. They don't usually sometimes don't want to create problems. And so they might not share exactly where they feel. They might worry that other people in their family are going to get sick. And that they might get sick because you're sick. And they can feel embarrassed if they feel like there's things that are happening for them that's different. This is the age group where they really kind of want to identify in the same manner as their peers. And so being different doesn't feel good sometimes. I know we encourage our kids to be different and be themselves, but this is a time in life when they really don't want to be that different from their peers. So that can be difficult. Any questions? Nope. Okay. Okay, teens. Teens are a unique age group. And I'm sorry, please remind me, did anybody have teenagers? 6th grade. We already covered 6th grade, but oops, sorry guys, I'm skipping around. Nobody has teenagers. Well, you will. You have teenagers, right? They're going to become teenagers someday. So good, hopefully you're through this by then, but what if you're not? So just in case, or what if you have a friend who has teens? This can be really helpful information. Our teens there's 2 rules of thought. And I lean towards they're not adults yet, they're teens. The other rule of thought is, oh, they're so capable, let them take on more responsibility, blah, blah, blah. So I don't agree with that. I've just seen that through our experience with the CLIMB program and some other grief support programs, that the teens that have more responsibility placed on them in these certain situations, I mean, sometimes that's unavoidable. Like that's just what the family has to do to get through a situation, but it's tough on the teens. They're not really adults yet. They're not really ready to take on some of these things. And there's a space where they still get to be kids and teens, and they're not adults yet. They can not share and close up quite a bit. We have to do some coaching to get teens to the CLIMB program, coaching for the parents. This is something we're all doing as a family. We're going to do this together. If you hate it after the first 2 times, you don't have to come back, because they don't want to be different. They don't want to come to a program or go to any type of program or talk about things that are uncomfortable. Make them different. Make them have to, just put more energy than they can handle to something. They do get misinformation. Obviously, they are, rocket scientists on the computer and can probably build a computer or code it for you. But that doesn't mean that they're Googling the right information about the cancer diagnosis that you have, and particularly. So there still can be misinformation there. It can be good to have them go to appointments with you so that they can hear also what you're hearing, if you're comfortable with that. It just depends on, what's best for you. They do definitely have a basic understanding of what cancer is. They certainly know people affected by cancer. They might even have a friend that's had cancer. And teens do contemplate life, meaning of life a lot. Just it's natural. If you think back to that age for you and what you thought about, what you wanted to be, what you wanted to do, what life and death meant to you, teens ruminate on those things quite a bit. Any questions about teens? No. So our philosophy through the CLIMB program is to let them be teens, let them be helpful if they want to be. They should keep up with their normal activities, normal help in the household, as a member of that household. But to ask them to do a lot of extra things and rely solely on them can be really hard on them. Not that they shouldn't help in any way, but just to be mindful of how much responsibility is being placed on their shoulders. They often hide their feelings from the adults because they don't want to burden you. They don't want you to feel like there's another thing for you to worry about. I don't want you to worry about my feelings when you're having such a hard time for yourself. Okay, this goes for everybody, and it's just good rules in general of talking about your feelings and communication. These are feelings facts from the CLIMB program, and it's the basis of how we talk about how we feel in the program. And it's just good life lessons for your kids and talking about your feelings, and that everybody feels something all the time. So if you ask somebody, how are you feeling? Or and they say, I don't feel anything. That's not really true. Maybe they're feeling ambivalent, but they're not feeling nothing. And sometimes we have mixed feelings. So sometimes they might be really happy about something. Maybe they got an A at school or got invited to do something. And at the same time, they feel really sad because you have cancer or something else has happened in life. So you can have mixed feelings, and that all feelings are okay, but some feelings are hard to have, right? And that our feelings need to be expressed. And when kids don't express their feelings, and people, we know, but especially for little kids, it can go to their gut. It can have physical manifestations. They can have tummy aches, regress with the bedwetting again, or not sleep and have nightmares and not feel well, want to stay home from school because they don't feel good. So things like that. So we're also responsible for our own feelings. Someone can't make us feel that way, right? We're responsible for our own feelings, and we can't change other people's feelings, including our kids. Like, your kids might be sad or confused about cancer, but we can't change their feelings. No matter how much we might want to change that for them, we can't really change it for them. We can only love them and support them through it and give them the right information to help them deal and cope with their feelings. So what do you say to your kids? And so you're always going to want to tell the truth when they ask you a question, okay? And for ages 3 to 12, it should be a conversation like the sex conversation. You don't want to overdo it, but you don't want to not tell them enough information. They need enough information to process their question correctly, but you don't need to go on and on and on about what it is. And then if you're going to lose your hair, you definitely need to be honest about that, because that can be really scary, especially for younger children. That physical manifestation of illness, of hair loss, or other changes that you might have in appearance can be really scary for them. Mastectomies and things like that. You're going to do everything you can to help yourself get better, but I wouldn't promise things that you don't know. Okay, because they'll remember those things. They can't catch your cancer. You're going to tell them anything and everything that's important, even if it's scary. You're going to be honest with them. And just because you're sick or you have this cancer illness, you could say cancer illness, not just illness, you're still there for them, and to please come talk to you, even if they think that might upset you or you might be bothered, that you really want to be there for them to help support them. Do you have any questions about this slide?
No, I think you've done a good job about explaining. I know my kids are adults, but I have a granddaughter that I spend a lot of time with, and she just turned 4. And without realizing, I would tell her, oh, you know, or I wouldn't tell her, but I would just be like talking out loud, or I would get dressed and I'd say, oh, my boob, you know, and I'd say my boob, or my boob hurts, or I'm not feeling well, or I didn't have any hair when my hair fell out. And she was like so sensitive, but I noticed I had to be careful because she would say, oh, my boobs hurt.
The age repeats things a lot.
Yeah, so I had to let her know that what I was actually going through, and that my son got mad at me and said that I was being too open and too straightforward with her. But I felt like she kind of understood, and I didn't know how else to tell her, you know, and I had to explain to her. So I don't know if I did a good thing or a bad thing, but I did it.
Well,
I have a question.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am,
I'm
Miranda.
sorry.
No,
Okay.
please go ahead.
What if somebody's breast cancer is hereditary and you have girls you're talking to? At what age do you tell them about that? Is this too young still? Because some of them will have started menstruating already by 12. What do you think?
Well, my opinion would be that you wouldn't need to tell them until they're an older teen. They ask you about it, always tell the truth, right? Or they're an older teen, because with some genetic mutations, they have to start screening earlier, like in their early 20s. And they need to be informed about their own bodies and their own history, even if it's scary. So, but I don't think telling a middle schooler or a freshman in high school, if it's not, you know, if it hasn't come up, I think that's a little early and can have adverse effects possibly. unless they're
Thank
asking.
you.
Yeah, that would
Okay,
be my
great. Thank you.
opinion. But I would
Right.
definitely talk
Right.
to, you know, a professional, your doctor about that, or a Allison might have an opinion about that. Okay, anybody else? And Antoinette, thank you so much for sharing. I know that we tell our kids lots of things in ways that we think are okay just in everyday life, and on reflection, think back to changes we could have made in those conversations, and whether it's about cancer or something else. So I appreciate your sharing.
I don't have a question, but I wanted just to comment sort of along the same lines, because I was really second guessing myself. I was diagnosed in August of last year, and I started chemotherapy right at the end of August. So I was really open with my kids, both of them, the 5 and the 7-year-old, and their dad initially was like, no, we don't want to scare them. But we did talk about it, and all these things, I feel like, okay, I was really honest with them. And when they ask questions, I just answer their questions, and so it just made me feel better that I was like, okay, not being too open about it, but so thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that's something else if they're asking, and you know, everybody's relationship with their children and family communication is different, right? We all have our own approaches to how we parent and communicate in our homes, and being consistent with that communication style is important. I would say that if you have a communication style that is not as communicative as some, then you might want to rethink being a bit more open. And then we've had families where one of the parents would just be like, we're going to be optimistic. That's all we're going to talk about is the good stuff. And that was great that he was the cheerleader for the family, but it didn't give anybody else in the family space to express their own feelings. So you want to be careful that you're giving your family space to express their feelings in the way that they need to, and not just adopt one style for all, right? But I think if you have an open relationship with your kids and you're talking, and that's how you guys approach things in general, you're not really doing anything different. But just don't share too much if there is some scary information that you really don't know the answer to yet. Like you might not want to create a fear there that they may not have to visit. If that makes sense.
Jess, I know you had, this is Allison. I know you had, kind of said Allison may have a different thought on that. And I don't, I totally agree with you. I just didn't want to interrupt. In my particular case, we were very open, and my husband and I made the conscious choice to do that with our son. He was 2 at the time. For me, it was a really interesting dynamic because I was the executive director of an early education program at the time. And I worked, with children who were kind of ages 2 to 5. And I was honestly more worried about, I felt really comfortable with our sharing as far as my son went and answering questions. And like you said, I mean, we have a really communicative kind of dynamic within our family. So it just sort of made sense. And he sat on my lap when I had my head shaved and when I tried on my first wigs. And, so he really kind of knew what was going on. But I was so worried that the parents of the other children I worked with maybe wouldn't know how or want to address that with their kids. So I would put on my wig and put on my eyelashes and put on my makeup every day and go to work, trying to kind of keep that status quo, that norm, because I, was just trying to be sensitive to what other families felt about sharing with their young ones. Cause it's just that's such an interesting age, that kind of 2 to 5, and what we feel open about sharing.
Absolutely. And as an administrator of a school with kids, with parents who don't necessarily take the same approach as you do, you have to be mindful of that in that role. And I think inviting your close people to you, your children, anybody, your close friends, into your experience makes it normal. Makes it feel normal, rather than like having them sit on your lap while you got your hair taken off. That was probably less traumatizing than walking in the door bald. So for him, and But that's something that's such a personal thing for most women, the hair issue in and of itself. For you, the right way to share it with others, it can be challenging. So, and with your kids, but there is a storybook from Cancer Services of New Mexico called Mama Wear a Hat. It was written by a cancer survivor, breast cancer survivor, who is an active community navigator. Her name is Eleanor Schick. She wrote the book, and it's a cute picture book for younger kids. And if you guys need one, I can help you get it for free. If you want to let Allison know about it, then I'll get you a family cancer resource bag that will have that book in it. Okay.
Jess, that's amazing. Thank you. And additionally, is it possible to get a couple copies for the lending library at Pink Warrior House?
I can ask about that. I'll ask Eleanor directly. You might have to buy them. How would you feel about that?
That's totally fine. If we need to,
Okay.
we'll do whatever we need to do. It's just, we have a few books in our lending library, but we don't have any local ones, and I'm always looking for additional materials. And so whatever we need to do for sure, but I'm just thinking maybe like 2 copies for now, and just being able to make them available.
I have a feeling I'll be able to get them for you for free, but just in case, well, we'll figure it out. So
okay. Yeah, we'll buy them if need be. You just let me know.
Okay, sounds good. Okay.
I just read that book. I just read it to my kids last night, actually. And I had picked it up at Dr. Ridgway's office. He had a ton of copies on the shelf in his office, and I was free to take one. So I don't know if that's also another source if you're looking for more. He had a whole bunch. But it was a great book to read. Even I read it first to my 10-year-old, which is a little, it's a picture book, so it's a little old for him, but he was very engaged, and it was a great way to tell the story to help start the conversation with him. And it definitely got his wheels turning. I was kind of surprised because, well, it was 2 days ago that I read it to him. And then yesterday, kind of out of the blue, he brought up the topic in conversation again, and is kind of wigging out about the idea of me losing my hair. So the book was a great way to broach that topic.
Great. It usually gets really positive feedback. In fact, I've never heard any negative feedback about it. And it would be great to have it for the lending library. And Allison, we can also directly connect people to their own copy if they really want it. So, and that's for free through that organization. That's part of one of the programs that they do. Okay, I'll move on.
Jess, I'm sorry, I had one more comment to Miranda's. I grew up with my grandma that had breast cancer, and we have a fairly large family. And I just always had been told, like teenage years probably. So growing up and, going through puberty, like that's what you're aware of, and into like your adulthood, it was all about checking and screening. And I mean, I did it diligently, but all of the women, my mom, her sisters, all the cousins, nieces, everybody was aware, and we like take it really seriously because I think we knew about it at such a young age. So just wanted to share that comment. And I have resources too. I could share them at the end that really helped my son and I, because I went through a diagnosis during a pandemic, and I didn't really have a lot of resources. So I had to research and found some cool like coloring books, so like a mommy and me coloring book, and just kind of very high level read that him and I would read together. So I could share those with the group at the end as well.
That'd be great. I'd love to learn about them myself. So thank you for sharing that. I would agree that if you are in a family who, your family culture is to talk about these things and normalize them and do them, that's great. And anything we do can go either way. We have the same in my family with my kids. Not for breast cancer, but my children have lost almost all family members on their father's side to a cancer, not the same one. And so it can also cultivate fear, like fear of when am I getting it? I'm going to get it. When is it going to happen? So that's good to just keep in your mind too, that it can be really good. And depending on the kid, it can also not be a great approach. But how do you know, right? We don't have books to tell us what our kids are going to be like later. But looking for cues in their behavior and what they share with you can be an identifier for what's the best way for them. But I think it's great that you've known about it for such a long time. And honestly, if something happened for my kids, I think it's better for them to have known all this time than to have been in the dark about it, right? So honesty is always best. So what not to say. Here's what not to say. You guys may have been reviewing it while we chatted, but don't tell them everything's going to be okay. You don't know. That wouldn't be an honest answer. Hopefully things will be okay. That's why you say you're going to do everything you can to help yourself be better. But you don't know if everything will be okay. And what you may consider okay may not be considered okay for someone else. Don't tell them that their feelings are wrong. If they share something with you, don't say, no, that's wrong, or no, you shouldn't feel that way. And don't invalidate how they're feeling. Don't tell them that you're not going to die. Hopefully we don't die, but you could get in a car accident tomorrow. It might not even be about your cancer. Just, we don't know when that time and moment comes for us. So, and then anything you don't know, say you don't know, but you'll find out the answer, or you can find out the answer together and have them be a part of it. So some of these statements are really hard to hear, right? Because we want to protect our kids. We want to protect their feelings. We don't want them to think something bad is going to happen to us and have them live in fear about it. But being honest about things is better than not being honest about it, and their long-term mental health about things and their emotional health. Okay, Allison, do you have anything to share about that slide?
No, I just totally agree with you. You know, going through it personally, there were times where I wanted to just say, everything's going to be okay. And I hoped and I believed in my heart it would be, but I had to catch myself, because I agree with you. It's like, you know, I wouldn't want to set him up for failure by telling him what I hope is true and not having that be the case. So, you know, those were hard. And I was very conscientious about that whole concept of thinking twice and speaking once along this journey, and making sure that I was just really thoughtful in my word choice. So I appreciate, you know, your candor on that one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough thing to swallow. It's actually, I think, what keeps a lot of families out of the CLIMB program, because we do approach death in that program. We talk about, everybody's thinking it. You hear the word cancer, people think death, whether it pertains to that individual or not. But let's face it, you weren't a cancer expert probably before your own diagnosis. And so there's lots of different kinds, and some are not good and some are not terrible. Nobody wants to have it, but some have much better prognosis than others. And we do talk about death and bring it up and normalize it and dispel it and give the family an opportunity to discuss it themselves. That's actually the whole focus of the CLIMB program, is get to week 4 where we do bring up death. Usually the kids bring it up. So that's the goal, is that we've opened them up so much in the program that somebody actually says it, a peer says it, and then they all talk about it. And that gives you an opportunity to talk about it after that night's program and help stabilize their feelings about it and support them in that. Okay, so this really applies to any moment in parenting. Thinking about what you're going to say before you just bust in on it, but take a moment, especially in this cancer, especially if things aren't going well for you or you're really not feeling well. Assess how you're feeling before you walk into that conversation with your kid, no matter their age. Do a self-check where you're at. That doesn't mean withhold, just check in with yourself where you're at with things. Think about possible questions that could come up and how you want to answer those questions, like kind of how we're doing today. Think of possible feelings your child might have about it. They could have a completely different reaction than what you anticipate them. So, you might think they'll be like, oh, and ask questions, but they could just be super angry and throw their teddy bear down on the floor and run off to their room because you're talking about this. Let's see. Think about feelings that might come up for you with your kids' different reactions with things as things go on. And think about the emotional cognitive age that your child is in. What is fair to think they might be able to process depending on how old they are. And then pick a time, if whenever possible, that you're not rushed and you can do something together following the conversation. So you're not like, okay, bye, see you after school, or see you after you go to your friend's party, so that you guys have just time outside of that conversation to come back together after that conversation. That's not always possible. Something's happening, spontaneous things happen, but even if they spontaneously ask you, and you're not going to have that time to really sit with them in this conversation and then do something after, you might want to say, hey, you know what, that is such a great question, and I have really wanted to talk to you about this, but let's do it when you come home tomorrow after you've been at grandma's house for the night, and spend some time together, and pick a better time if you can, rather than going into the conversation and not being able to close it up well. Okay. We show this video to kids about cancer. It is a basic video. Because of time, I'm not going to show it. If you come to Climb, we'll make you watch it anyway. Your kids watch it. We all watch it. But it is available on YouTube. It was made for the Climb program by MD Anderson. And it's kids explaining cancer to kids. I actually show this video to our adult patients who are really just having a hard time about what is this cancer stuff anyway. And it's a great explainer of the emotions that can come up for kids and questions that frequently come up for them with a cancer diagnosis. And all parents like to think, my kids are fine. We've been talking about this. They're good to go. And oftentimes there's a lot underneath that surface that they just aren't sure they can share, that come up in the Climb program. And that's really what that program is about, that communication door opener. Here are some other ways and some support materials you can get about talking to your kids. This, frankly speaking, is an excellent resource that's free from Cancer Support Community. You could definitely get copies, Allison, for the library there. You can go, individuals can go online to Cancer Support Community and ask to have that sent to you. I give that out here frequently. This talking with your treehouse friends about cancer is like the Climb program and coloring book style. I do not have an English version, but Allison, if you ever need a Spanish speaking version of that, I have a lot of copies.
Okay, that'd be great, Jess. And then if I contacted like MD Anderson, could we get one in English, do you think?
Well, MD Anderson doesn't have Climb. Climb is a
I'm sorry. I thought
that
referencing.
Yeah, this actually comes in the family cancer resource bag with that Mama Wears a Hat book.
Okay, got it. So because I'm a mama of a 5-year-old and a survivor, do you think I could get one of those and then I can, make copies or something and make it available through the lending library?
Absolutely. And I don't know, we can talk. If you think he's like old enough to do the Climb program, you guys are welcome.
Thank you. I think I would really like to do it. And
if you can.
Yeah. Well, and that was the other reason I was going to raise my hand. Do you think as whenever it is that you offer the Climb, you can let us know and then we can put the invitation through our Hobnob network for anybody
Absolutely.
that might be interested in participating? Because I'd really like to add that to our invitation.
Absolutely. And we did just hear that we received grant funding again to run a program this year. So we are planning on having it in person in September. We usually always do it in September. And again, in the spring, we try to run it after the family cancer retreat, just in support of the programs. But we will be having it this September. So, and I am taking reservations to attend the program. It looks like this. Like you can fill it out with your child. This is in Spanish, and I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish, so I cannot read this to you, but you can see that the graphics are really very child friendly and appropriate. And this is really great for, you know, first grade or younger than first grade. You can't come to the program, but you kind of want to, it's a good communication tool, door opener to talk to your little ones. This is a great book, all ages, helping your children cope with cancer. Great tips. This was actually written by the founder of the CLIMB program. And CLIMB was written, the CLIMB program curriculum, it is curriculum, it's a structured program, was written by Miss Heine, who is a social worker and guru and talking about cancer in kids and support groups. And so she's actually the author of the CLIMB program, and I actually was very fortunate to be trained under her, and another social worker from MD Anderson. So anybody running a CLIMB program has to be a trained facilitator from that program with their tools. So we're not just making it up, I guess, just because. And then did you want to share your resources, Antoinette?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, I found a couple of these on Amazon. This one resonated with me the most, Butterfly Kisses and Wishes on Wings. And when I saw it, my son and I always gave butterfly kisses. And then as I started to read through it, oh, it just really hit home. And as I mentioned, it's very high level. It doesn't get down to everything that can and will happen, but at a very high level, it goes through everything. Some of the things you mentioned, you know, is it contagious? Can I get it? Can I spread it? What happens if you lose your hair? And just little things like that, but in a very high level way. So I loved this one a lot. And then my son and I, we still do this one. It's a coloring book, and it says American Cancer Society, but
Yeah,
it says because someone I love has cancer, and it comes with some crayons there, but it's just activities to go through, like how you're feeling, what your fears are, what concerns, what are some fun things that we used to do, what are some things that maybe changed, and just little things like that. So we always kind of get in here still and write our feelings and that kind of thing. And my aunt just gave me this one recently. She lives up in Taos. Plaid
Right.
frogs, blue toads, and pink polywogs. This one was really cool, but because it doesn't mention cancer at all, but it gives the concept of these kind of amphibians going through a change and then them finding a cure and getting better. So it kind of, I guess it simulates that to cancer. But so those were a few that really have helped, I guess, myself and my son kind of have those conversations.
Those are excellent choices.
And I was diagnosed last year, same as Rebecca, in August, and my son was 7 at the time. He's almost going to be 9. So, you know, it helped me to have those conversations, and I was very honest with him too. Same as Allison said. I mean, he was with me to shave my head and everything. And he wanted to sleep in my room the whole time, just in case I needed him in the middle of the night, because it's just him and I, and he sleeps like a log. He won't wake up for nothing. But the concept and the thought of him wanting to be there in case I needed help, I let him run with it. Like, bless his heart. So yeah, very cool.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing those. Those are excellent resources.
thanks.
I've seen them before. Yeah, those are really great. I did want to say that, you know, CLIMB isn't necessarily for the newly diagnosed. So even if, you know, you're not in treatment anymore and you're kind of out of that day-to-day thing, it's still a great place for them to, and actually we don't allow families to come to CLIMB until they have been through some time following their diagnosis, about 3 to 4 months at the minimum, so that everybody's had time to digest how they feel about things and the information they've gotten. So, you know, even being a year out or at any point in time, CLIMB is still a good idea. And it really is just teaching life coping skills is what we do in there. We do art projects every time. The parents do them too. Everybody does the same thing each time you come. So you know just exactly what your kids are doing and what we're telling them about it to help them cope. This is their favorite project. It has a terrible name. It's called the Anger Cube. But It's everybody's favorite project, and is a game you're supposed to make for yourself. So if you're having strong feelings or overwhelming feelings, you can use this as a tool to help you think of something to help you calm, not dismiss those feelings, but to be in a different place if you want to be. So we do things like that. We feed you dinner each time you come for those 6 weeks. We have a mini graduation at the end of the 6 weeks with cake and balloons. And I have an ethical thing with balloons, but the kids really like them, so we haven't gotten rid of the balloons yet. And we do, it is a structured program. So every night the kids participate. We make notes on their participation, and their questions are things coming up that we think you should know about. And then at the last session before the cake, we share with you how your child did in the program. And we also make recommendations for if needed for, professional assistance from a child social worker or psychologist or something if needed, or additional readings or things like that. Yes, Allison, I'm sorry.
No, you're totally okay. I just had a quick question for you. So back when I used to work at Texas Children's Hospital as a grief and trauma counselor when I was finishing graduate school. And one of the things that we did there, and it was, because it was Texas Children's, it was siblings of cancer patients as opposed to children of cancer patients, but I could see it being really helpful. And I just wondered if it was something you knew existed anywhere kind of around here. But what it was is a couple times a year, we would do a sibling retreat. This would be, like a kids retreat, and they would actually come to the cancer center, and we had like dolls, and we would, show kind of how they would receive their medicines through shots, and the kids could kind of practice that. And then, we would have sort of different games, and then there would be discussions around it, and just being in that environment and kind of taking some of the fear factor away from it was really a wonderful thing for the siblings. And so I just didn't know if that would translate, or if you knew if anything like that existed around here.
So are you thinking about, so we are the only program for children in the state of New Mexico.
Okay.
Outside of the family cancer retreat, which really isn't a structured, that's not true. The teen program I developed has some structure to it to open the door to their processing and coping with feelings. But the kids program is just fun. It's supervised fun for 2 days while the parents are at a retreat, or the grandparents. Are you thinking about like supporting the sibling of children with a cancer diagnosis, or your breast group? Because the siblings come to so if your child, the siblings are going to be in the Climb program, and the parent has to come too. And they do tour the cancer center and get on the radiation tables and move them around and go to the infusion room and check out what that looks like. And the doctors and radiation therapists are present that day. That is the second meeting that we have, so that the kids can ask them all the questions they want.
Okay, yeah, that sounds similar. I was just saying siblings because that's how it was set up at Texas Children's. It was siblings of the oncology patients, but I was thinking kids in general who had parents who were going through it. It was just, I wasn't sure at the time, gosh, would this be scary for the kids to kind of come into the cancer center and experience this? But it really had the opposite effect, right? It was able to mitigate a lot of that fear for them when they could see, in this case, we're brother or sister, but I'm thinking now, like where mommy or daddy gets their shots or goes for their medicine, or, this is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. Because I think, any of us on this journey know that the unknown is what's so terrifying, and it's totally the same for our kids. Right. And so I think taking that off the table, really makes a difference. So I'm glad that is part of the Climb program. I just didn't know if you kind of did that hands-on stuff.
We absolutely do. And that you just hit the nail on the head. Really, there is that the fear of the unknown, which is really what we're dispelling in the Climb program, both for kids and the parent, like the fear of how's my kid going to take carrying the word, death with cancer, or how are they going to feel if they go into the chemotherapy room? And it's a very cathartic experience for the kids to see things in person, see where you've been going and spending so much time. And, you know, you usually, if they're under 14, they can't come in. They can't go into those areas with you. And so they're
Still can.
excluded from that experience. And so this gives them the opportunity to share with each other and to be in those places and ask those questions. And the nurses are really great. And the doctors who do that, they explain everything and show them. And sometimes it's scary for the kids, for some kids, and very overwhelming to see those things, to see what an IV pole looks like and things like that. But for the most part, they're really curious. Yes. Who wants Miranda?
Okay, I don't know if I'm muted or not. No, I'm not. Okay.
You're not. No, I can hear you.
What I'm wondering is, does the word climb stand for something, like the letters meaning like children, something, or cancer, something, I don't know.
It does. It means children's lives include moments of bravery.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Rebecca?
I just had a couple of questions. Do we have to be patients of the New Mexico Cancer Center to do the climb? Okay, I'm at UNM, and I would really love to get both of my kids in there, and I have a kindergartner and a second grader, so I'm hoping to try and do for both.
Okay. Do you want to email me? There's my email, and I would be happy to put you on the list. And no, it's actually, we host it here, but honestly, it's not even, we don't own this program. It goes where I go. So we are lucky enough to have the great space to utilize it here, but it's open to the entire community for free for everyone.
Okay. Oh, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Antoinette, did you have another question or comment?
Oh yeah, I wanted to know how to get on the list to be included for the program.
Please just email me and I'll put you on the list. Yeah, and in your emails, if you could include how old your child is, their name and how old they are, what grade they're going to be in this next fall, because the groups are by grade, not necessarily age, but their social grade level that they're in, because that's really how they are processing their life.
Just emailed you before. You're already in my contacts, but I love that they get to go into the room, because I am with New Mexico Cancer Center. So my son would go with my mom to drop me off for infusion, and he would FaceTime me on his break from school. And so I would show him some things. So for him to be able to actually go and then see the radiation machine or everything, that is awesome. Very cool.
Go ahead, Allison, did you have something?
Yes, sorry, Jess. I was just going to say, when you send over the flyer or whatever it is, so I can put it in our Hobnob platform we have a couple hundred warriors at this point that are on our invitation list.
Yeah.
I'd love to send it out to them. Will you also include all of those questions that you would like answered within your email?
Absolutely.
And then hopefully it'll be a little more succinct, and you'll just get one email from anyone who's interested with everything you need.
Sounds great. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And Dara, how can I answer your questions? Is it Dara or Dara? Because my sister-in-law is Dara.
Oh, there's not very many of us. I'm a Dara, actually. So thanks. I was wondering if you were able to put the link to that video in the chat so we can all access that.
You can. If you're planning to come to climb, I will do that. But I would say, if you do have plans to come to climb, I would kind of hold off on showing your kids and let them see it at climb, because it is a big talking point for them and part of that program. But absolutely.
What's the structure of the climb program? You said it was six weeks. Like, is it like a once a week evening meeting? What's the structure of it?
It's once a week for 6 weeks.
Okay. So,
and you come every week for those 6 weeks. Everyone who comes to the program commits to coming to the program for the 6 weeks time. It's not an open program. So once we have our participants, it becomes a closed group. So for trust and to build support within the different age groups meeting. So there's a school age children group, a teen group, and a parent group. And so if somebody has to miss, we ask that they only miss one, because it really compromises that bond that the kids form, and frankly, the parents form with one another. So here, let me go back, here's the link right there. Oh, it's not gonna let me do it. Hold on. Let me get it to Allison and she can send it to all of you guys. Let's see if I had it up here. I didn't. You guys can see that? Here it is, actually. I'm gonna go back. It's on YouTube. Look up Kid to Kid. What time does your group end?
So we don't really have a set time. We posted it for an hour. But you know, I never want to cut anybody off if they have questions and they're engaged. So we'll
Do you
just go
guys want to watch it? It's 14 minutes long. So
Jess, I will indicate that I do have another event at 7, but you're the host now. So if I have to jump off, you could also continue to keep going. So I just want to let you know that option is there as well, but I will have to jump off at 7.
no problem. Well, there's the link to it and how to find it if you want to review it. If you guys want to watch it, I'm happy to stay and play it for you, or you're welcome to review it on your own time. What would you like?
I've got to log off, but I appreciate
Okay.
I really appreciate all this information. It was super helpful. So
Good.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be able to.
Thanks for coming,
I'll
Dara.
have to sign off. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, may I ask just one more quick question for you?
Absolutely. I'm yours till you're ready to go.
Thank
And I'll say
you.
bye to you, Allison, in case you have to jump off.
If I do, Jess, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your time and knowledge with us this evening. It was really a lovely lecture. So thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to check if you yet know what the starting date of that climb program is and what night of the week is it?
It's a Thursday, typically. We've always held it on a Thursday. Let me look at a calendar and I can kind of tell you when we'll probably start it. We have not identified the start date yet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hold on one sec. So Labor Day is probably going to be the 6th. So we will not start it on the 2nd because no one will come because everybody goes on vacation. But in that week is usually difficult. What I need to do is check with the family cancer retreat when they're going to run in, because we also don't like to run it before they have their events because it's just a lot for people to try to do both things. And we always run into that sports night. We have practice, and I just say this is a different investment for 6 weeks, and then they don't do it again. They're certainly welcome to come back. Sometimes things happen and families are still in that place, or they need a refresher, and anyone can repeat the program for free. But it is a one-time thing typically.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Amber.
I'm very interested. I'll email you.
Did you have any questions? No, you got the little tinies.
Yeah, they're pretty tiny.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you, guys. Great to meet you.
Thank you so much.
For your time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much again, Jess. That was really great.
You're welcome. Anytime. I look forward to doing it again. And I'll get you those resources, everybody. Okay.
Perfect. And Jess, I'm thinking if we could, if your schedule permits, that maybe we could do this like twice a year or something, maybe every 6 months, or
Absolutely.
just because we do constantly have new people coming in, and since you do the climb twice a year, if we could do it far enough out that those people might be able to participate in the next one, I think that could be beneficial.
Absolutely. And we can also be really spontaneous if you happen to have a lot of new group members that actually are in need. The group, a full group is 6 kids. So 6 in the school age kid and 6 in the teen program. Any bigger than that, then it's not quite as meaningful. It just, but we can do it as much as needed. So.
Okay, that's really good to know. I mean, it can tend to come in waves. We signed up 5 new young warriors in the last 30 days. And so I think it's likely more relevant for our younger warriors. And so, certainly if that trend continues, then perhaps we'll even want to address it maybe even more frequently, but you and I can kind of talk offline on that one too.
Absolutely. And let's let me know how we can help support you all.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care, guys.